Banished from Earth Classic Game Room broadcasts from the Intergalactic Space Arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything. Welcome to Classic Game Room. What happens when you combine Sonic the Hedgehog and pinball? You get Sonic SPINBALL, of course, but is it a better Sonic game or a pinball game? Here's a copy of Truxton. Enjoy the review. From 1993, it's the combination of Sonic the Hedgehog and the good old sport of pinball. It sounds like a match made in heaven, like a delicious peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But is it? Let's find out. Now, we've seen Sonic platform his way through some pinball-inspired levels like those in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which was pretty interesting, but how about an entire game where Sonic the Hedgehog is the actual pinball, bouncing his way through levels which are half pinball machine, half Sonic the Hedgehog? It sounds like a brilliant combination, and it's a very clever game, but it does suffer from a few things which prevent it from being a terrific video game pinball game. For starters, it's really slow and a bit jerky. You can increase the ball speed, but the game itself is still sluggish compared to an actual pinball machine. In fact, it's a bit sluggish compared to most other video game pinball games. It's like the Sega Genesis really wants the 32X to help out with this one. It just feels like it needs more power. But let's talk about the gameplay, because there's a lot to like here in Sonic SPINBALL. For starters, you complete objectives like you do on a real pinball machine, and then move on to the next part of the table where you do things there like flip a switch, knock some barrels out of the way, and eventually gain access to some Chaos Emeralds, which you need to collect in order to fight the end boss. It all sounds simple enough, but it's actually really very difficult. It's a tough game. Because if you complete most of your objectives and then lose your ball, or in this case, drown Sonic in lava or acid, you have to complete them all over again. And that's frustrating. It's frustrating on a real pinball machine too, but in this case it can take something like 15 to 20 minutes to complete everything on at least the first table, which is quite big. It took me a while to figure this out. After you collect the first 2 Chaos Emeralds, you have to drain Sonic down the middle of one of the side tables and land in that barrel, and then paddle your way over to the 3rd Chaos Emerald. That unlocks the boss battle, and as you see, this has some cool features that you would obviously never see on a real pinball machine. I don't think they could actually get Sonic the Hedgehog to do this for real. Now, some other major differences between this and other pinball games, or video game pinball games, is that Sonic can obviously grab ledges and stuff and walk around and jump from time to time, but you also have a bit of control of where he's going when he's spinning around in the air. And this is a really important part of the game, because you can kind of guide him to the right or to the left or slow him down, which is critical because you don't have any feel of the ball when it's on the flippers like you do with a real pinball machine. And there's no analog controls, so it's all or nothing when you flip. Important, to say the least. Here's a cool little bonus level in between tables 1 and 2, and as you can see, this is really pushing the limits of what the Genesis can do. Let's move on to the next table, which is punishing beyond belief. No longer do you have a barrel or any kind of a safety thing right in the middle. This time, if you screw up, Sonic falls right into the molten lava. And here we have Sonic bouncing on steam jets or something until he bounces off a robotic bird up into that pipe and then collects a Chaos Emerald, which has very little to do with pinball. This is neat because the levels are really big for a pinball game, and you're doing things with Sonic the Hedgehog that you would just never do on an actual pinball machine. It's also likable, but at the same time, it's so frustrating and so jerky that you may find yourself just going back to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 instead. Now, the good news is that if you think this looks cool, Sonic SPINBALL can be easily found on the internet for your Genesis, and it's also available in Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection from Sega, which is a terrific buy. So I've got to give a big Classic Game Room shout out and thank you all the way to Mohammed in Qatar for sending this to the show, where Sonic has now been ground up into some gears. What a mess. Here's a new feature on Classic Game Room, a map of Earth, which of course, I am not on. Oh no, we've been banished, but here is where the game has come from. So thanks again, Mohammed, and thanks to all of you. I really appreciate this game. I think it's ambitious, I think it's clever. It's just not a great pinball game. It's something totally unique because it's Sonic SPINBALL, a game that all Sonic and pinball fans should play at least once.